Later on in the early 90s, the first Union Clinic opened up in Cannons Creek. The one in Wellington and Newtown had opened in the 1980s, and then the community-owned one in Cannons Creek opened about sort of 7 or 8 years later.
4 of the doctors at Whitby were all trained by Logan McLennan, all went through as his registrars. And he had that real social conscience about working where he was needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly I think in the subsequent generation, my generation, people chose to work here because they either liked it or they thought it was a good thing to do, or a combination of both. You know, you certainly didn't get the kind of higher levels of income from working out here that you would do in some other situations in city areas, for example. And some of my old peers and classmates used to say, "What in God's name are you thinking? Why are you working there? You're crazy." So there we were at this stage, kind of in this narrative now, where kind of I've taken over the Bruce practice. Anna, bless her, has agreed to move out of the gorgeous cottage in Wadestown, and we're in Beach Road at Plimmerton, kind of getting used to the idea that, oh my gosh, you know, we must be grown-ups now. And Matthias, who'd started school in town, then started at Plimmerton School. And we started our long career of renovation at that stage. And I got stuck into general practice here, and it was great fun.
You used to come home for lunch.
That's right.
And the rest has not been like that at all.
It's just got busier and busier, hasn't it? And as I was saying before, maternity work was, if not standard, then certainly extremely common then for family doctors and GPs. And the little maternity unit up here at Kennyperu had been going for quite some time. In Lyle Bruce's days, there had been a little wee maternity unit over in Elston, actually, only a block away from where he lived and just tucked in behind Mana College. When Kennyperu Hospital itself was first built, there was a building which was 2 stories, quite a substantial building. It's been bowled over now, which was the maternity unit. And that was pretty busy. Back then in those early days, there was myself, there was Logan, George Tripe did deliveries, John did when he came, David Robinson, who I now work with at Whitby, was working at Waitangarua, started there about sort of 5 years after me. He was doing deliveries. Vic Alcock, who was up in Mana, did deliveries. So there were probably about 8 or 9 GPs altogether, all delivering babies under the then model of care, which was women would go to their family doctors, basically, for care during pregnancy. The family doctors would attend at deliveries, and they'd be assisted both in the antenatal care and in the labours and deliveries by hospital-trained and hospital-employed midwives.
It was brilliant. We used to have a maternity morning, and often we would know they were pregnant at the same time they did, because they'd come in and I could do the pregnancy test, and I learned to say, what are you hoping for? Because sometimes they weren't hoping that the line would go across. And then they'd come monthly. So we had this lovely thing, and then it would get more and more frequent as delivery came closer till it was weekly. And they'd all get to know each other. So when they were up at Kennyperu often, there was a connection. And we would, of course, know that they'd had their babies straight away. And Larry would do a round the next day. And I always sent a posy with him. He was sort of known for doing it.
For every new birth,
Every
that's
birth,
right.
they got a posy. And it was really lovely, wasn't it? Because we knew they'd had the babies. We knew what had happened during delivery, and if something had gone wrong, we knew. Now, you often don't know that a patient's had a baby until about 6 or 7 weeks after the birth, and they turn up with a new baby. So you don't get all that lovely inclusiveness, which we loved, and people wept bitterly when Larry gave up, because they wanted him to keep delivering future children, and he couldn't.
So the model of care changed with the Helen Clark change in legislation for independent midwifery. And, the independent midwives are fantastic, but the change in the funding model just made it increasingly unviable for GPs. And John Rowland and I were the last 2 standing. We both kept on going. Everybody else had dropped out, 2002 maybe. And then one day John said, that's it, I've had enough. I'm actually paying about $100 per patient for the privilege of looking after these women. I'm not doing it anymore. It's pretty hard going, and it's pretty tough on families as well, because you can't go too far away unless somebody else is prepared to provide you with cover, which is how come when John stopped, it was pretty tough even then, because we were covering each other. So if he wanted to go away for a weekend, I'd be looking after things for him and vice versa.
You said you would complete all the deliveries you'd committed to.
Yeah.
And we couldn't go more than 10 minutes from Porirua. Larry cut his hand badly with a chainsaw down the garden, and he said, I have to still be at the deliveries because I've promised, but he couldn't drive. So for 6 appalling weeks, I would be in the car park at Kenepuru thinking, I wish I was dead. And he hated it because I wouldn't let him play his rock and roll on the way to the hospital because I was driving and I was grumpy. I still don't know how he managed maternity because it was up and down all night. It was usually about 3 babies a week.
Yeah, at the height of it, I would have been delivering about 150 babies a year. And over the 20 years of doing that maternity work, it would have been about 2,000 babies altogether. I was thinking about all this just recently, actually, because I saw the funeral notice of Ethel England. Ethel was the charge nurse in the maternity unit. Quite a tough, nuggety, rather fun English woman. She was from the north, and she ran her staff with an iron hand. It passed away just recently, and I thought, oh my goodness me, that's the end of an era as well. I mean, the connection does go on in a sense, even though you're not doing the deliveries, and I haven't done them now for 15 or more years. That connection that you make having done that with families is very enduring. People say to us,
You go to the supermarket. Oh, hello, Dr. Jordan. This is so you delivered.
yeah, it's a 7 foot tall hulking person. That's
some
right.
poor adolescent's going, oh, it's so embarrassing. We had a plumber in with an apprentice at Mungavin towards the end, and I looked at him, and they'd moved down to Tawa and left the practice, but I knew who he was, and I said, oh, I think Larry delivered you. He said, yes, but I was smaller. Completely serious. I thought, yeah, that's a good thing. Fellow.
Yeah,
It was so
yeah, that's
funny.
right.
Yeah.